U.S. Supreme Court rules on a judge's ability to block presidential policy. More on the decision and its future impact. Plus, RFK Jr.'s vaccine panel wraps up its first meeting, the recommendation that could impact flu shots, and why some in the medical field are concerned about the group's process.
Covering news where you live. This is 5 News at Noon.
Thank you for joining us for your 5 News at Noon. I'm Morgan Wrigley here with Joshua Weisel. It's Friday, and it sounds like I'm seeing some sunny skies out here right now, but some of our area might be seeing some showers, right?
Oh, yes, and it's going to be one of those tricky things where if you have outdoor plans, I wouldn't necessarily cancel them, but we already have scattered showers and thunderstorms in portions of the area. But also, we're going to continue to see these throughout the day, and you can see now everyone's seeing it in Fort Smith and Fayetteville, for instance. If you're looking at the TV and you're wondering, well, what rain chances is he talking about? It's all the way out here to our east, near Clarksville. But notice a little bit of development further to the north and west. So we'll be watching. We're going to see these little pop-up scattered showers and thunderstorms develop throughout the next several hours into early this evening. So just keep in mind, if you got any sort of plans, keep an eye on the radar and be mindful for any sort of potential lightning. Wouldn't cancel those plans, but we do have the potential for rain, at least over the next several hours. Here's a look at those temperatures, though. Right around the 80s into getting closer to the 90s right now. And I could show you these all day, and it doesn't feel like that for most of us. Here's what it does feel like out there this morning into this afternoon, right around into the 90s. Starting to see some upper 90s on the board there as well. So that looks to be what it's feeling like out there. It's a little bit better in terms of what we're feeling out there with the temperatures on the board. Throughout the day, we're going to have the chance for these scattered showers and thunderstorms. So this will continue into portions of this evening. So like I said, just keep an eye on the radar, not only for Northwest Arkansas, but also the River Valley. So, you know, not everyone's going to see this activity, but just be mindful of it just because this could briefly interrupt any sort of plans. We'll have more details on this rain and more rainfall forecasted ahead, as well as details in terms of the forecast in just minutes.
Thanks, Joshua. Well, new at noon, Washington County is introducing plans for the largest subsidized veteran housing initiative in the United States. It's called Patriot Park. It'll be located in Fayetteville. It will feature 60 housing units, all dedicated to veterans. That includes 24 one-bedroom units, 12 two-bedroom units, and 12 three-bedroom units. It will be offered at affordable rates targeting veterans at or below 60% of the median income. We'll have more on this coming up later on your 5 News First at 4. And on the final day of its term, the Supreme Court issued on a closely watched case involving President Trump's move to restrict birthright citizenship. Natalie Brand has the latest from the White House.
In a 6-3 decision, the U.S. Supreme Court ruled Friday to limit the power of judges to issue nationwide injunctions to block a president's executive order. The opinion, written by Justice Amy Coney Barrett, split along the court's ideological lines. It says in part, these injunctions, known as universal injunctions, likely exceed the equitable authority that Congress has granted to federal courts.
She's also saying very clearly that when people walk into federal court now and they ask for relief of an executive order, they cannot get these universal injunctions anymore. Instead, courts are limited in the scope, the remedy that they can provide.
The ruling did not touch the issue of birthright citizenship, protected by the Constitution's 14th Amendment. In the dissent, Justice Sonia Sotomayor writes, no right is safe in the new legal regime the court creates.
Federal judges in Washington, Maryland, and Massachusetts blocked that policy nationwide, saying it violates the Constitution. Their injunctions escalated all the way up to the U.S. Supreme Court, calling into question the power of a single lower court judge to block a presidential policy.
The Trump administration's emergency appeal said the lower court's ruling should only apply to individual cases, not the whole country.
In the dissents, what you saw was an argument that, okay, yes, there is a proper process, but there are certain cases where it would be appropriate for a single court to issue a nationwide injunction.
The fight over nationwide injunctions goes back years, with presidents from both parties criticizing them, but the issue has been amplified by the Trump administration, facing more than 200 legal challenges so far. Natalie Brand, CBS News, Washington.
Well, senators are split along party lines over President Trump's claims that nuclear sites in Iran were obliterated by U.S. strikes over the weekend. Lawmakers have now received a classified briefing.
It was effective. They blew these places up in a major league way.
I walk away from that briefing still under the belief that we have not obliterated the program.
Defense Secretary Pete Hegseth defended the strikes in a news conference. Meanwhile, there's uncertainty over a possible meeting with Iran. President Trump said it's happening next week. The White House press secretary has said so far no meetings are scheduled. Well, we've got to look at the first set of recommendations from the new CDC advisory panel. The group selected by HHS Secretary Kennedy after he dismissed the entire prior panel makes recommendations on the use and scheduling of vaccines. Jared Hill has the latest.
In an Atlanta conference room, a new decision on vaccines.
The first vote is for children.
The CDC's Vaccine Advisory Committee, handpicked by Health and Human Services Secretary Robert F. Kennedy Jr., endorsed this fall's flu vaccines, but only if they're free of an ingredient anti-vax groups have falsely linked to autism, a preservative called thimerosal.
Removing a known neurotoxin from being injected into our most vulnerable population is a good place to start with making America healthy again.
I'm not quite sure how to respond to this presentation. This is an old issue that has been addressed in the past.
Studies have found no correlation between thimerosal and autism, but one member of the panel remarked, "We have to respect the fear of mercury that might dissuade some people from getting vaccinated." Dr. Richard Besser is a former acting director of the CDC.
In the past, if there was a question that this committee wanted to address, they would put together a work group. They would spend months diving into the science before they would bring it to the committee. This issue today didn't go through that process, and that's really concerning.
Earlier this week, the panel backed a new option to protect infants from RSV, and the panel may look at the schedule for measles, mumps, and rubella inoculation. Jared Hill, CBS News.
The committee could also consider whether all newborns need the hepatitis B vaccine. This, as some members of the panel have questioned whether the CDC's tracking of vaccine safety is trustworthy. Well, here at home, a longtime local Fayetteville business is making headlines this week after facing a misdemeanor charge over what's being displayed in its window. Collier Drug Store on Dixon Street recently added an American flag to a digital video board that faces the road, but Fayetteville's sign ordinance prohibits electronic graphic displays from public areas. City leaders say safety was the main reason that this rule was put in place.
One of the primary purposes of the Fayetteville sign ordinance originally back in the 80s when it was enacted was to promote traffic safety, and so you wouldn't have distracted drivers.
The store says it was notified of a complaint shortly after they added the American flag to the display, and they were told they could face fines of $250 per day. Have a court date scheduled for July 31st. The store said in a statement they remain committed to complying with city rules and serving as a respectful community partner. Looking ahead, several significant laws are set to take effect across Arkansas on July 1st. State universities will see expansion, with the University of Arkansas authorized to add 250 new positions. Arkansas State University can fill 50 additional roles. Meanwhile, drivers should be aware of a fee increase for accident reports. Copies of crash reports for non-involved parties will now cost $25. That's up from $10 previously. And state employees gain access to a new student loan repayment program offering up to $10,000 in assistance. Additionally, first responders receive expanded line of duty death benefits, including coverage for specific cancer-related illnesses. Well, a court date is set that could settle the West Memphis 3 case. Damian Eccles will face a judge next month in Marion, fighting for DNA testing that could prove his innocence. 3 8-year-old boys were murdered in 1993. Then 3 teenagers, Damian Eccles, Jesse Miskelly, and Jason Baldwin, were convicted and imprisoned for 18 years. A controversial plea deal in 2011 freed them. Now there's new evidence, shoelaces from the crime scene that were supposed to be destroyed but weren't. The Arkansas Supreme Court has ordered the testing, but Eccles says it still hasn't happened. This hearing will be next month on July 23rd. We'll be following this closely and we'll bring you any updates right here on 5 News. Well, it's now been just over 4 years since Pea Ridge police officer Kevin Apple died in the line of duty. At a vigil, community members honored his memory and the impact he had on Pea Ridge and the surrounding area. On Thursday, his friends and coworkers shared stories that exemplified who he was. They sang, prayed, lit candles, and remembered him together. The chief of police in Pea Ridge explains just how much this community supports Kevin, his family, and first responders everywhere.
We have the greatest community ever. The community stands behind us always. When Kevin was killed, they came out in droves, and so I can't say enough about the Pea Ridge community and their dedication to Kevin Apple and the police department, the fire department, and all of our first responders. They are just amazing.
He tells us they'll continue to do this every year, adding that they'll never forget Officer Apple's legacy and his impact on this community. Shauna Cash, the woman who was driving the vehicle that killed Officer Apple, was sentenced to life in prison without parole. A jury found her guilty of capital murder, as well as several other counts related to the deadly car crash. Elijah Andazola was also sentenced to 15 years of probation for his role as an accomplice. You can find all of our coverage on their cases on our website, 5newsonline.com. Well, this weekend is the Northwest Arkansas Pride Festival in downtown Fayetteville. It's the largest annual Pride weekend in the natural state, with thousands from across the state expected there in downtown. The festival has now been around for more than 2 decades, and this year will be the first time it's been able to utilize the new Upper Ramble green space on Dixon Street. One of the first events of the weekend will be a trans march this evening on Dixon Street. That'll be followed by a full day of events and a parade on Saturday. You can find a full schedule for all the events on our website, 5newsonline.com.